if you could demonstrate to me, to my level of satisfaction, that this God was real, I would not worship it. Knowing what I know about the Christian God.
So you know that the Christian God is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. That he's the sovereign creator and ruler over all things. He is the source of goodness, justice, and love. And if you knew 100% with certainty that he was real, you wouldn't worship him. This line of thinking is absurd, and I see it all of the time from atheists. Because if he's real, that means all of the characteristics of who he is are consistent. And you're rejecting the source of goodness and truth and love and justice in the universe. The Bible has a word for that. Our society has a word for that. It's called foolishness. It is the epitome of the phrase, there is no God and I hate him.
Even if I don't know anything about the Christian God, just knowing what I know about the world we live in, any God that's in charge of this is a monster.
And then he manages to take it to just another level of foolishness. Because to try to make an assumption about the world that God created without any knowledge of him is foolishness. Because what we learned about the Christian God and the Christian worldview is that the world has actually rejected God and gone astray and made its own path, which has led to evil in all sorts of manner. And that God in his goodness is redeeming the world back to himself to make right what has been wronged. And just because he doesn't do it immediately doesn't mean he's not good. Because it could be that God is patiently waiting in that he sees a greater good that is coming. Because ultimately Christianity accounts for suffering and the world's rejection of God. And then we see God actually become man to suffer with us and suffer for us as he goes to the cross, endures death, and resurrects. Why is that important? Because Jesus is actually defeating the end of all suffering, which is death. And then finally, we will see the full resolution of suffering in God creating a new heaven and new earth. That suffering is actually coming to an end because of who God is and what he's done. And so ultimately, to ignore who God is and just look around and go, well, there's suffering in the world, so God must not exist, and if he does, he must be pretty terrible, is foolishness. But thanks be to God that he is good, that all suffering has a purpose and a redemption and will come to an end, and that it is not a foolish thing to put your hope in him.